I've been working with Interpol for 2 years, building a case against everyone, including you.
I killed 12 men. For revenge. I'd do it again.
She had 48 hours to choose: save the man she loved or protect her father from a truth that would destroy them all. Victoria Marchetti stood in her father's study at 3 a.m, staring at security footage she wasn't supposed to see. The timestamp read 2 hours earlier. The camera angle showed her father's desk, and the man sitting across from him, signing papers that would send someone to their death, was the same man who'd kissed her 6 hours ago and told her he loved her. Kang Min-ho, her father's most trusted friend, the man who'd saved her life when she was 17, the man she'd spent 6 years trying to forget, and 6 weeks falling desperately, impossibly in love with. And now, watching him agree to murder someone for her father's empire, Victoria realized she'd been in love with a ghost. Because the man on that screen wasn't the man who'd held her last night. Or maybe he was, and she'd just been too blind to see it. The study door opened behind her. Victoria's hand flew to pause the video, but she was too slow. Watching home movies? Her father's voice was cold, empty. Alessandro Marchetti stood in the doorway in his silk robe, looking like a king surveying a traitor in his kingdom. Or gathering evidence. Victoria's throat closed. He knew. Somehow, he knew everything. "I can explain," she whispered. Her father walked to the bar and poured himself whiskey, like it was 9 a.m. instead of 3. Like his daughter hadn't just been caught spying on him, like their entire relationship wasn't shattering in real time. "Can you? Because I'd love to hear how my daughter, who I raised, who I gave everything to, ended up working with Interpol to destroy me." The words hung in the air like poison. Victoria had spent 2 years building this moment, 2 years gathering evidence, making contacts, preparing for the day she'd have to choose between her father and justice. She'd thought she was ready. She'd thought she could handle it. She was wrong. "Papa, please! It's not what you think." Alessandro laughed, and it was the saddest sound Victoria had ever heard. "Then what is it? Enlighten me." But before she could answer, headlights swept across the windows, a car in the driveway, at 3 a.m. Her father's expression shifted from hurt to something dangerous. He pulled a gun from his desk drawer with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times before. "Get behind me. Now." "Papa, what's happening?" "The Tanaka family knows about your investigation, which means they know I've been helping you. Which means..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to, which means they were both about to die. The front door exploded in not opened, exploded. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. And Victoria understood, in that crystalline moment of terror, that everything she'd done to save people had just gotten the only person she had left killed. Her father grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the panic room hidden behind the bookshelf. But they didn't make it. 3 men in black tactical gear burst into the study, weapons raised, faces covered. Alessandro pushed Victoria behind him and raised his own gun. "My daughter has nothing to do with this. Let her go." The lead man laughed. "Your daughter is the reason we're here, Marchetti. She's been very busy, very stupid, but very busy." Victoria's legs trembled. This was it. This was how it ended. In her father's study, surrounded by men with guns, paying for her choices with their lives. Then a voice cut through the chaos. A voice that made Victoria's heart stop. "Put the guns down, now." Kang Min-ho stepped out of the shadows behind the intruders, his own weapon pressed against the lead man's head. His eyes found Victoria's across the room, and she saw something in them she'd never seen before. Absolute, terrifying rage. "You have 3 seconds to leave this penthouse," Minho said quietly. "Or I paint these walls with your brain. Your choice." The lead man's finger twitched toward his trigger. Minho's gun never wavered. 1. "You're bluffing." 2. Time froze. Victoria could hear her own heartbeat, could feel her father's hand gripping her wrist, could see the calculation in the intruder's eyes as he decided whether Kang Minho was the kind of man who made empty threats. He wasn't. 3. Before we continue with what happened next, I need to tell you something. This story, this impossible love between a mafia princess and the man who was never supposed to touch her, gets darker, it gets more twisted. It gets real in ways that most romance stories don't dare to go. If you want to see how Victoria survives this night, if you want to know what Minho does to protect her, if you want to watch this whole empire burn down around 3 people trying desperately to love each other in a world built on blood, then subscribe. Because what happens next will either destroy them or save them, and you won't want to miss a single moment. Now, let me take you back. Back to where this really started. 6 months earlier, when Victoria Marchetti made the biggest mistake of her life. She came home. 6 months earlier. Coming home after 6 years feels like visiting a crime scene. Victoria stepped off the plane at Incheon Airport and felt Seoul's summer humidity wrap around her throat like a hand. England had been cold and distant and safe. Oxford University had given her exactly what she needed: time, distance, a chance to become someone other than Alessandro Marchetti's untouchable daughter. But blood calls you back, always. Her father's driver waited at arrivals, holding a sign with her name, even though he'd known her since she was 7 years old. Mr. Arn. Kim didn't smile. People in her father's employment didn't waste energy on unnecessary gestures. "Miss Victoria, welcome home." Home. The word tasted like metal in her mouth. The Mercedes cut through Seoul traffic like a knife through silk. The city had transformed while she was gone. New towers scraped the polluted sky. Old neighborhoods she remembered from childhood had been erased and rebuilt with glass and gold. Everything was faster, sharper, more expensive, just like her father's empire. "Your father has been preparing for your return," Mr. Kim said, eyes on the road. "He's planned a welcome celebration. 200 guests." Victoria's stomach twisted. 200 witnesses. 200 people who would see Alessandro Marchetti's daughter and assume she was just like him. Rich, powerful, untouchable. None of them would know she'd spent the last 2 years sending encrypted files to Interpol, building a case that could either save her father or destroy him. She hadn't decided which yet. The Marchetti Tower rose 73 floors above Gangnam, its golden glass exterior catching the afternoon sun like a crown made of lies. The top 15 floors were private, the Marchetti family residence, accessible only to people whose fingerprints were coded into the security system. Victoria pressed her thumb to the scanner and felt the familiar click. Some locks recognized you. Some prisons did too. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, and there he was. Alessandro Marchetti, at 58, looked like a man who'd never had to beg for anything. Silver hair styled perfectly. Tom Ford suit tailored to hide the weight he'd gained since her mother died. But it was his eyes that always caught people off guard, dark and calculating and always 3 moves ahead. Victoria had inherited those eyes. Mia Principessa. He opened his arms. For a second, Victoria was 7 years old again. Before she understood what her father really did. Before she knew that empires built on silk were really built on blood. Before her mother died and took all the light out of their home with her. She stepped into her father's embrace and breathed in tobacco and bergamot and 20 years of lies. "Welcome home, my darling. I've missed you." Victoria pulled away before the moment could soften her. "The penthouse looks different. I had it redesigned. Your mother's taste was beautiful. But it was time to move forward." He gestured to the sprawling living room. Everything white and gold and obscenely expensive. Everything carefully curated to look legitimate. You mean it was time to erase her? Her father's jaw tightened, but he didn't take the bait. Alessandro Marchetti had built an empire by controlling his emotions, and he wasn't about to lose control now. Your welcome party is tomorrow night. The mayor will attend, several ambassadors, all the key players in Seoul's business community. Key players, that's what he called them. Like they were chess pieces instead of crime bosses dressed in designer suits. I'm tired, Papa. The flight was long. Of course. Rest. We'll talk tomorrow. He poured himself whiskey from the crystal decanter. Oh, and Victoria, I've arranged for enhanced security while you're here. Seoul isn't Oxford. You'll have protection. I don't need protection. Her father's smile didn't reach his eyes. You're a Marchetti. You'll always need protection. There was something in his voice. A warning. Or maybe a threat. With Alessandro, it was hard to tell the difference. Victoria escaped to her bedroom, which had also been redesigned but still had the same view of the Han River, cutting through the city like an infected wound. She stood at the window and pulled out her phone, scrolling to encrypted messages from her Interpol contact. The last message read, "Are you in position?" Victoria's fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was it. The point of no return. Once she confirmed, once she started gathering evidence from inside her father's operation, there was no going back. She typed, "Yes, party, tomorrow. We'll make contact." 3 dots appeared. Then, remember, Alessandro Marchetti isn't just your father. He's built an empire on human trafficking, money laundering, and murder. Don't let emotion compromise the mission. Victoria deleted the conversation and threw her phone on the bed. She caught her reflection in the window. Dark eyes, sharp cheekbones, her mother's face with her father's instincts. Who was she now? The Oxford-educated lawyer? The Interpol informant? The Mafia princess playing both sides? Or just a girl who'd made the mistake of falling in love with a dangerous man when she was 17 and had spent 6 years trying to convince herself she could save him? Tomorrow night at the party, she'd find out. Tomorrow night, she'd see Kang Minho again. And everything she'd carefully built would either hold together or shatter into pieces too small to ever repair. The grand ballroom of the Marchetti Hotel Seoul was designed to make you feel insignificant. 50-foot ceilings, crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Marble floors polished to mirrors. Everything screamed wealth and power, and the kind of taste that only came from blood money, pretending to be legitimate. Victoria descended the grand staircase on her father's arm, wearing a custom scarlet Dior gown that had been made specifically for tonight. The dress was a statement, a warning, a declaration that Alessandro Marchetti's daughter was no longer a child. 200 faces turned to watch her, ambassadors and CEOs and politicians, and underneath all that respectability, the real power. Seoul's underworld elite, dressed in designer suits and fake smiles, pretending they didn't buy and sell human lives like other men traded stocks. Victoria had been trained for this since birth. Smile. Make eye contact. Remember names. Never show weakness. Never let them see you bleed. But then she saw him. Kang Minho stood near the bar, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Black suit that fit like it had been painted on. Dark hair pushed back from a face that had hardened in the 6 years since she'd seen him. All sharp angles, and cold eyes, and barely controlled violence. Seoul's most dangerous man, her father called him. The one person Alessandro Marchetti trusted with everything. The one person Victoria should have stayed away from. Their eyes met across the ballroom, and the world stopped. Victoria forgot to breathe. Forgot the smile she was supposed to maintain. Forgot every rule about composure and control. Because Kang Minho was looking at her the way a man looks at something he wants, but knows he can never have. Something precious. Something forbidden. And Victoria realized with terrifying clarity that she was looking at him exactly the same way. Her father's hand tightened on her arm, a warning. Come, there are people you need to meet. Alessandro led her through the crowd like she was a prized possession at auction. Handshakes and compliments and questions about Oxford. Everyone wanted a piece of Alessandro Marchetti's daughter. Everyone wanted to know if she was as ruthless as her father, as beautiful as her dead mother, as controllable as they hoped. But Victoria could feel Minho's eyes on her the entire time, watching, waiting, burning. It was almost midnight when her father finally brought her to the bar where Minho stood alone, radiating the kind of danger that made smart people keep their distance. Minho, I'd like you to properly meet my daughter. Victoria, this is Kang Minho. He's the reason you're alive. Victoria extended her hand. When Minho took it, electricity shot up her arm and exploded in her chest. His hand was rough, calloused, the hand of a man who'd killed people, who'd built an empire with violence instead of just money. It's nice to see you again, Victoria said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Minho's grip tightened for just a second before he released her. You've grown up. It's been 6 years. Has it? His eyes swept over her, and Victoria felt stripped bare despite the couture dress. Feels longer, Alessandro laughed, completely oblivious to the tension crackling between them like exposed wire. Minho has agreed to personally handle your security detail. I won't hear any arguments this time, Victoria. Seoul isn't safe. I can protect myself, Victoria said. Minho's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I'm sure you can, but humor your father. Before Victoria could respond, voices rose near the entrance. Something wrong? Alessandro's entire demeanor changed from proud father to something cold and lethal. Excuse me, he said, already moving toward the disturbance, which left Victoria alone with Minho for the first time in 6 years. The silence stretched between them like a blade waiting to cut. You shouldn't have come back, Minho said finally, not looking at her. Victoria's heart clenched. This is my home. No. Your home was England, being normal, being safe, being anywhere but here. Maybe I don't want safe. Now he looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her step back. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. You don't know anything about what I want. Minho moved closer. Too close. Close enough that Victoria's back hit the bar. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made her head spin. I know you're Alessandro's daughter, he said quietly, his voice rough. I know you're 24 years old and you spent 6 years in a country where no one tried to kill you. I know your father would put a bullet in my head if I so much as looked at you wrong. And I know you're standing here in that red dress looking at me like I'm not the most dangerous mistake you could ever make. Victoria's breath caught. And what am I to you? Minho's jaw clenched. For a second, she saw something crack in his carefully controlled expression. Want. Need. Something raw and desperate that he immediately buried. You're the only good thing Alessandro Marchetti ever created, which means you're untouchable. What if I don't want to be untouchable? The question hung between them like a dare. Minho's hand came up, almost touching her face, then stopped. Then you're more dangerous than I thought. Han River Park at 2 p.m. was filled with ordinary people, living ordinary lives. Couples walked hand in hand along the waterfront. Families spread picnic blankets on the grass. Joggers ran past in expensive athletic wear, their earbuds blocking out the world. Everyone was absorbed in their own small universe, completely unaware that 2 people were about to have a conversation that could get them both killed. Victoria sat on a bench facing Banpo Bridge, wearing oversized sunglasses and a baseball cap pulled low. She'd learned in England that sometimes the best way to hide was to look like you were trying not to be noticed. People's eyes slid right past you when you looked like every other paranoid celebrity or cheating spouse. She saw Minho before he saw her. He was impossible to miss even in casual clothes. Dark jeans, a black t-shirt, leather jacket despite the heat. He moved through the crowd like a shark through the water, and people unconsciously stepped out of his way without knowing why. That was the thing about dangerous men. You felt them before you saw them. Minho sat down beside her without a word, his eyes scanning the park with practiced efficiency, looking for threats, looking for cameras, looking for any reason this meeting was a trap. "You came alone?" Victoria asked. "Did you?" Victoria pulled out her phone and showed him the screen, a tracking app with a single blinking dot. "My father's security team thinks I'm at a spa in Gangnam. I have about 2 hours before they realize the dot isn't moving because I left my phone in a locker." Minho's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Smart. I went to Oxford. They teach you things. They teach you how to lose a security detail? They teach you how to think. The rest is improvisation." Now Minho did smile, and it transformed his entire face. For a second, he looked young, almost vulnerable. Then the mask slid back into place. "Why am I here, Victoria?" "Because last night I heard something I wasn't supposed to hear." His body went still. "What did you hear?" "That the Tanaka family wants to marry me off to secure peace. That my father has 3 months to agree, or they'll start a war. That you've been ordered to stay away from me." Minho's jaw clenched. "You were in the ventilation shaft." "You knew about the ventilation shaft?" "I know everything about your father's penthouse. I designed the security system." Victoria turned to look at him directly. "Then you know I'm not going to let this happen. What you want doesn't matter. This is business." "Business? They're selling me like I'm a hotel property." "Welcome to our world." The words were harsh, but Victoria heard something underneath them. Anger, maybe even pain. "Is that what you think I am?" she asked quietly. "Just another asset in my father's portfolio?" Minho was quiet for a long moment, watching a family fly a kite near the water. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "I think you're the one good thing that came out of Alessandro Marchetti's life. I think you're brilliant and stubborn, and you have no idea how dangerous the world you just stepped back into really is. And I think that if you keep pushing, you're going to get yourself killed." "What if I'm willing to take that risk?" "I'm not." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Victoria took a breath. 6 years ago, you pulled me out of a burning car. Do you remember what you said to me?" "Victoria, you said you're safe now. You promised me I was safe." She pulled off her sunglasses so he could see her eyes. "Were you lying?" Minho looked at her, really looked at her, and Victoria saw something crack in his carefully constructed armor. "No," he said quietly. "I wasn't lying. But I was naive, because you can't be safe in this world. Not as long as you're Alessandro Marchetti's daughter. Not as long as men like me exist. Men like you kept me alive. Men like me are the reason you needed saving in the first place." Victoria leaned closer. "Tell me about the Tanaka family. Tell me what they really want." Minho shook his head. "I can't. Can't or won't. Both." "Then tell me about you. Tell me why my father trusts you more than anyone else in his empire." Minho stood up abruptly, putting distance between them. "This conversation is over." "No, it's not." Victoria stood too, closing the gap he'd tried to create. "You came here. You could have ignored my message, but you came. Why?" "Because I promised your father I'd protect you." Liar. The word hit him like a slap. His eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Be very careful, Victoria." "Or what? You'll tell my father I'm asking questions?" "He already knows I'm not the obedient little girl he wants me to be." She stepped even closer, close enough to smell his cologne, close enough to see the pulse beating in his throat. "You came because you wanted to see me. Admit it. What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me." Minho's hand shot out and gripped her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. "You need to listen very carefully. The Tanaka family doesn't make empty threats. If your father refuses this marriage, they will come for you. Not to kill you, to take you, and what they'll do to you will be worse than death. Victoria's heart hammered, but she didn't pull away. Then help me stop them. I can't. You mean you won't? I mean, if I move against the Tanaka family without your father's approval, it starts the very war we're trying to prevent. Dozens of people will die. Innocent people. Your father's employees. Their families. So I'm supposed to just accept this? Marry a man I've never met to keep the peace? Minho's grip on her wrist tightened for just a second. Then he let go like she'd burned him. Your father will find another way. What if there is no other way? Then you run. You get on a plane tonight and go back to England and you never come back. Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really think my father would let me run? Or that the Tanaka family wouldn't follow me? I'm not naive, Minho. I know exactly what kind of reach these organizations have. Then what do you want from me? The truth. I want to know what my father really is, what you really are. I want to know what I'm fighting against. Minho turned away from her, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. When he spoke, his voice was tired. Your father was nobody when I met him. He had one hotel in Milan that was drowning in debt. The Italian mob wanted their money, and when Alessandro couldn't pay, they sent people to collect. I was 19 years old, in Italy on business for my own organization, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Or the wrong place, depending on how you look at it. Victoria stayed quiet, letting him talk. I stopped them from killing him, not because I cared about Alessandro Marchetti, but because I was young and stupid, and I still believed in honor, in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Minho's laugh was bitter. Alessandro asked me why I saved him. I told him because no man should die begging. He looked at me and said, "Then help me become the kind of man who never has to beg." So you did. I taught him how to navigate my world, how to make deals with dangerous people, how to launder money and move assets and build an empire that looked legitimate on the surface, but was rotten underneath. And in return, he gave me legitimacy, introduced me to politicians and businessmen who would never have met with a street thug from Seoul. We built something together. Him in the light, me in the shadows. Victoria's chest ached. And then he had a daughter. Minho finally turned to look at her. And then he had you. And everything changed, because suddenly Alessandro wasn't building an empire for himself. He was building it for you. Every hotel, every investment, every deal was about creating a legacy his daughter could inherit without blood on her hands. But the blood was already there. Yes, the blood was always there. They stood in silence, watching the river flow past. An old man fed pigeons nearby. A little girl chased her brother through the grass. Normal life happening all around them while they talked about murder and empires. The Tanaka family, Victoria said finally. What do they really want? Minho sighed. Your father has something they need. Information, names, bank accounts, 20 years of records on every major crime organization in Asia. He kept it all as insurance, as leverage. The Tanaka family wants that information destroyed before he decides to use it against them. And they think marrying me gives them control over him? They know it does. Alessandro would burn his entire empire to the ground before he'd let anything happen to you. Victoria's mind raced. What if we gave them the information? Just handed it over? Then every organization your father ever betrayed would come for him. And you. The information is the only thing keeping you both alive. So we're trapped. Yes. Victoria shook her head. No, there has to be another way. Victoria, I'm not marrying Akira Tanaka. I don't care what it costs. I'd rather die. Minho moved so fast she barely saw him. 1 second, he was standing 3 feet away. The next, he had her pinned against a tree, his hand on her throat, not squeezing but holding her in place. His face was inches from hers, his eyes blazing. Don't you ever say that again, he growled. Don't you ever talk about dying like it's an option. Victoria's pulse thundered in her ears. She should have been scared. Any rational person would have been terrified. But all she felt was alive. "Why do you care?" she whispered. "Because I made a promise." "To my father." "Yes." Liar. Minho's thumb brushed against her pulse point, feeling her heartbeat. "You're so sure you know everything." "I know you're not here because my father ordered you to be. I know that when you look at me, you see something other than Alessandro Marchetti's daughter." Victoria's hand came up to cover his where it rested against her throat. "I know, because I feel it too." "Victoria, don't." "Don't what? Tell you the truth? I've been thinking about you for 6 years. Ever since you carried me out of that burning car and looked at me like I was the most precious thing you'd ever held. Ever since you sat by my hospital bed and promised me I was safe. Ever since Minho's mouth crashed into hers, cutting off her words. The kiss was nothing like Victoria had imagined in all her desperate, lonely nights in England. It wasn't gentle or sweet or romantic. It was fierce and desperate and tasted like goodbye. His hand tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and Victoria grabbed his jacket like she could physically hold him there forever. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "That was a mistake," Minho said, but he didn't let go of her. "I don't care. Your father will kill me. Only if he finds out." "Victoria, you don't understand what you're asking. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. I can't protect you the way I should. I can't think clearly. You become my weakness, and in my world, weaknesses get people killed." Victoria cupped his face in her hands. "Then maybe it's time to stop living in that world." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I've done things. Terrible things. Things that would make you look at me differently if you knew." "Try me." Minho pulled away, putting distance between them again. When he spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless. "The men who tried to kidnap you 6 years ago? I found them. All 5 of them. Your father wanted them dead quickly, but I didn't give him that. I made it slow. I made it hurt. I wanted them to understand what happens when you touch something that doesn't belong to you." He looked at her, and his eyes were empty. "I tortured them for 3 days before I finally let them die. And I felt nothing, no guilt, no remorse, just satisfaction that I'd sent a message." Victoria's stomach turned, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "You did that to protect me." "I did it because I enjoyed it." "I don't believe you." "Then you're a fool." "Maybe I am." Victoria stepped closer again, refusing to let him push her away. "But I'm a fool who knows what she wants, and I want you, not the version of you that you show my father, not the version that runs his security and makes his problems disappear. I want the version that sits in hospital rooms and makes promises, the version that looks at me like I'm the only real thing in his life." Minho's composure cracked. "You're going to destroy me." "Good, maybe we'll destroy each other." He kissed her again, slower this time, but no less intense. Victoria's back pressed against the tree, and she didn't care that they were in public, that anyone could see them, that this was probably the most dangerous thing she'd ever done. When they finally broke apart, Minho rested his forehead against hers. "If we do this," he said quietly, "you need to understand the rules. We meet in secret. No one can know. Not your father, not my people, no one. Okay? You can't tell me about your life, where you go, who you see. If I know too much, I'll want to control it, and that's not fair to you." "Okay. And if it becomes too dangerous, if your father finds out, or if the Tanaka family suspects, we end it. No arguments. No drama. We walk away and pretend this never happened." Victoria's chest ached at the thought, but she nodded. "Okay." Minho pulled back to look at her. "Why are you agreeing to this? You could have anyone, someone normal, someone safe." "Because I don't want safe, I want real." Victoria traced her finger along his jawline. "And you're the most real thing in my life." Minho caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. You're going to regret this. Probably, but not today. He smiled, and it was devastating. When can I see you again? Tomorrow night. There's an old warehouse in Yongsan-gu, near the train station. It's been abandoned for 5 years. I know the one. How do you know about it? Victoria smiled mysteriously. I've been doing research on my father's properties. That building used to be part of his portfolio before he sold it, but he still has keys. You stole keys from your father? I borrowed them. There's a difference. Minho laughed, actually laughed, and the sound made Victoria's heart soar. What time? He asked. 11, after my father goes to bed. I'll be there. They separated reluctantly, and Victoria forced herself to turn and walk away without looking back. If she looked back, she'd run to him again, and they were already taking too many risks. She made it halfway across the park before her phone buzzed. A message from Minho. You forgot your phone at the spa. Victoria smiled and texted back. Did I? Your tracking dot hasn't moved in 3 hours. Maybe I fell asleep in the sauna. Victoria, fine. I'm on my way back now. Are you going to tell my father? A long pause. Then, no, but don't make a habit of this. No promises. She could almost hear him sighing through the text. Victoria retrieved her phone from the spa locker and headed back to the penthouse, her mind already planning tomorrow night. What she'd wear, what she'd say, how it would feel to be alone with Minho without the weight of the world watching. But when she walked into the penthouse, her father was waiting in the living room with a man she'd never seen before. The stranger was young, maybe 30, with the kind of face that belonged in a cologne advertisement. Perfect features, expensive suit, smile that probably made most women weak in the knees. Victoria felt nothing but dread. Victoria, her father said, standing up, I'd like you to meet someone. This is Akira Tanaka. The world tilted sideways. Akira stood and bowed slightly, his smile never faltering. Miss Marchetti, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Your father has told me so much about you. Victoria's training kicked in automatically. Smile, extend your hand, be gracious. Mr. Tanaka, this is unexpected. I apologize for the intrusion. I was in Seoul on business and thought it would be rude not to introduce myself properly. His English was flawless, with just a hint of a British accent. Oxford, Victoria guessed. Or Cambridge. How thoughtful, Victoria said, her voice dripping with false warmth. Alessandro looked uncomfortable, which was rare. Akira was just telling me about his art collection. He has a Rothko. How nice, Victoria turned to her father. Papa, could I speak with you privately? Actually, Akira interrupted smoothly, I was hoping I could take you to dinner tomorrow night, Miss Marchetti. There's a new restaurant in Gangnam that's supposed to be excellent. I thought we could get to know each other. Victoria's smile felt like it was carved from ice. I'm afraid I have plans tomorrow. Oh? Anything exciting? Just spa time. Very boring. Akira's eyes gleamed with something Victoria didn't like. Perhaps another night then. I'll be in Seoul for the next 2 weeks. How convenient. Alessandro cleared his throat. Victoria, why don't you show Akira the view from the terrace? I need to make a phone call. It wasn't a request. Victoria led Akira out to the massive terrace that wrapped around the entire penthouse. Seoul sprawled below them like a circuit board, all lights and motion and life. Your father has built something impressive, Akira said, leaning against the railing. Not many men can transition from the life he lived to something this legitimate. My father is very talented. He is, but talent only gets you so far. At some point, you need powerful friends. Victoria turned to look at him directly. Is that what you are? A powerful friend? Akira's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'd like to be more than that. I'm sure you would. You don't like me. I don't know you. But you've already decided I'm the enemy. Victoria kept her face neutral. I don't believe in enemies. Just people with different objectives. And what are your objectives, Miss Marchetti? To live my life on my own terms. Akira laughed. How very American of you. Unfortunately, in our world, living on your own terms is a luxury most people can't afford. Our world? Come now, you're not naive. You know exactly what your father is. What I am. What your entire life has been built on. Victoria's jaw clenched. I know my father built a legitimate business empire. Built on blood money and laundered cash. Let's not pretend otherwise. Akira moved closer. I'm not here to judge. My family has done far worse. But I am here to propose a solution that benefits everyone. By everyone, you mean you. I mean all of us. Your father gets to keep his empire. My family gets the security we need. And you? He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Victoria forced herself not to flinch. You get to be a queen. I don't want to be a queen. Every woman wants to be a queen. They just don't all admit it. Victoria stepped back, putting distance between them. Mr. Tanaka, I appreciate the directness, but I'm not interested in whatever arrangement you and my father are discussing. Your interest isn't required, only your compliance. The words were said softly, almost kindly, but the threat underneath was crystal clear. Is that a threat? Victoria asked. It's a reality. Your father has 3 months to agree to our terms. I'm hoping that in those 3 months you and I can get to know each other. Maybe you'll even like me. And if I don't? Akira's smile turned cold. Then you'll learn to pretend. I've been told you're very good at pretending. Before Victoria could respond, her father returned to the terrace. Akira, I'm afraid I have an urgent business matter to attend to. Perhaps we could continue this another time. Of course, Akira bowed to both of them. Miss Marchetti, I look forward to our next meeting. He left with the same perfect grace he'd arrived with, and Victoria wanted to throw something expensive off the terrace. Instead, she turned to her father. When were you going to tell me he was in Seoul? Alessandro poured himself a whiskey. I didn't know until an hour ago. He showed up without warning. That's his style, isn't it? Show up where he's not wanted and make demands. Victoria! No, Papa, I'm not doing this. I'm not marrying him. I don't care what it costs. Alessandro's face hardened. You will do what's necessary to keep this family safe. This family? We're not a family. We're a business arrangement. You built an empire on blood, and now you want to trade me to keep it standing. Watch your mouth. Why? Because I'm finally saying what we both know is true? You're not a legitimate businessman, Papa. You're a criminal who got lucky. The slap came so fast Victoria didn't see it coming. Her head snapped to the side, and for a moment there was only ringing silence. Alessandro's hand was shaking. I have given you everything. Every opportunity. Every luxury. I built this empire so you would never have to struggle the way I did. So you would never have to make the choices I made. And this is how you thank me? Victoria's cheek burned, but she refused to cry. You built this empire for yourself. I was just a convenient excuse. Her father looked at her like she was a stranger. Go to your room. I'm 24 years old. You can't send me to my room. As long as you live under my roof, you follow my rules. Now go! Victoria went. Not because she was obedient, but because she needed to get away from him before she said something they'd both regret. In her room, she locked the door and pulled out her phone. 3 missed messages from her Interpol contact. Tanaka family file attached. Be careful. Also found something about Kang Minho. You need to see this. Call me when you can. This is bigger than you think. Victoria opened the first attachment. Photos of Akira Tanaka at various events, business meetings, charity galas, and then darker photos, crime scenes, bodies, a paper trail connecting him to human trafficking operations across 3 countries. The man who'd just stood on her terrace and talked about making her a queen was a monster. She opened the second attachment about Minho and felt her blood run cold. There was a photo from 10 years ago. Minho, younger, standing next to a woman. She was beautiful, Korean, maybe 25. They were holding hands. The caption underneath read, Kang Minho and Lee Yuna, 6 months before her death. Victoria clicked to the next page. An investigation report. Lee Yuna had been found dead in her apartment. Multiple stab wounds. The case was never solved. But witnesses reported seeing a man leaving her apartment the night she died. The description matched several members of rival organizations. The report concluded that Lee Yuna had been killed as retaliation against Kang Minho for a territory dispute. Victoria's hand shook. Minho had lost someone he'd loved, and he'd never mentioned it. She read the next page and felt her world shift. 3 weeks after Lee Yuna's death, 12 members of the rival organization were found dead in various locations across Seoul, all killed execution style. Kang Minho was questioned but never charged. Witnesses refused to testify. 12 people murdered for revenge. Victoria closed the file and lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The man she'd kissed today, the man she'd agreed to meet tomorrow night, had killed 12 people. Not in self-defense, not to protect anyone, for revenge. Her phone buzzed, a message from Minho. Are you okay? Your security detail just went active. What happened? Victoria stared at the message for a long time. She should cancel tomorrow. She should run. She should do anything except what she was about to do. But she thought about the way Minho had kissed her. The way he'd looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. The way he'd said, "You're going to destroy me," like it was the most honest thing he'd ever said. She typed back, "My father slapped me. Akira Tanaka was here." The reply came instantly. "I'm coming over. No, stay away. We can't risk it. Victoria, I don't care about the risk." "I do. Please. Just let me handle this." A long pause. Then, "Are we still on for tomorrow?" Victoria closed her eyes. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was probably going to get them both killed. "Yes. Tomorrow, 11. I'll be there." Victoria put her phone down and touched her cheek where her father had hit her. It didn't hurt physically anymore, but emotionally, something had broken between them that could never be fixed. She'd spent 6 years trying to save her father, trying to build a case that would bring down the organizations around him while keeping him safe. But maybe her father didn't want to be saved. Maybe he'd chosen this life, and he'd chosen to drag her down with him. Tomorrow night, she'd see Minho. She'd ask him about Lee Yuna. She'd ask him about the 12 men he'd killed. She'd ask him if he was capable of love, or if he was just as broken as everyone else in this world. And then she'd decide whether to save them all or destroy everything. But tonight, she'd let herself cry. Just for tonight. The abandoned warehouse in Yongsan-gu looked like something out of a nightmare. Victoria arrived at 10:30, giving herself time to scope out the location before Minho showed up. The building had been a textile factory once, back when this part of Seoul was industrial rather than gentrified. Now it was just hollow concrete and broken windows, graffiti covering the walls like scars. She'd told her father she was going to bed early with a headache. She'd disabled the tracking app on her phone. She'd climbed down the emergency fire escape from her bedroom window like a teenager sneaking out to meet her boyfriend. Except this wasn't some innocent teenage romance. This was playing with explosives in a room full of gasoline. Victoria picked her way through the debris on the warehouse floor, her phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, she heard sirens. The city never slept, never stopped moving. But in here, it felt like the world had forgotten this place existed. Perfect for secrets. She found a relatively clean spot near what used to be the loading dock and sat down on an old crate. Then she waited. Minho arrived at exactly 11. She heard him before she saw him, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. He appeared out of the shadows like something summoned, dressed all in black, his face unreadable. "You're early," he said. "So are you." "I've been here since 10, making sure you weren't followed." Victoria's heart did something complicated in her chest. "Were you following me the whole time?" "Yes." Minho moved closer, and in the dim light from her phone, She could see the tension in his shoulders. Your father increased your security detail after Akira's visit. There are now 4 men watching the penthouse instead of 2. I lost them. You think you lost them. There's a difference. Are you saying I'm not as clever as I think I am? I'm saying you're clever enough to be dangerous. To yourself. Minho reached out and tilted her chin up, examining her face. His thumb brushed over her cheekbone where her father had hit her. Does it hurt? Not anymore. Liar. Victoria pulled away from his touch before she could lean into it. We need to talk. I know. About things that might change how you feel about me being here. Minho's expression didn't change. Try me. Victoria took a breath. I know about Lee Yuna. The name hung in the air between them like a curse. Minho's entire body went rigid, his face shuddering into something cold and remote. How? I have resources, people who send me information. What kind of information? The kind that tells me you lost someone you loved 10 years ago. The kind that tells me 12 men died 3 weeks later. The kind that tells me you're not just dangerous, Minho, you're deadly. Minho turned away from her, his hands clenched into fists. When he spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless. Yuna was a mistake. I knew better than to love someone in my world, but I did it anyway. I thought I could protect her. I thought if I kept her separate from my work, if I never told her details, she'd be safe. He laughed bitterly. I was wrong. The Bayek family found out about her, used her to send me a message. They tortured her for information I'd never given her, then killed her when she had nothing to tell them. Victoria's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was my fault. I made her a target by loving her. And the 12 men? Got exactly what they deserved. I found every single person who knew about the plan to take her. Every person who participated. Every person who stood by and watched. And I made sure they understood that you don't touch what's mine. Were they all guilty? Minho finally turned to look at her, and his eyes were empty. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because I need to know if you're capable of restraint, or if you just destroy everything that threatens you. Minho moved closer, backing her up against the concrete wall. You want to know if I'd kill innocent people? If I'm a monster? I want to know the truth. The truth is complicated. Yes. They were all involved in Yuna's death, but some of them were just following orders. Some of them probably had families, children, people who loved them. His hand came up to rest against the wall beside her head. I killed them anyway, because in that moment, I wanted the world to burn. I wanted everyone to feel the pain I felt, and I didn't stop until there was no one left to punish. Do you regret it? I regret that it didn't bring her back. I regret that killing them didn't make the pain stop. But do I regret that they're dead? No. Victoria should have been terrified. Every survival instinct she had should have been screaming at her to run. But instead, she reached up and touched his face, feeling the rough stubble on his jaw. Tell me about her. Minho's eyes closed. Why? Because I want to know who you were before you became this. Before you built walls so high no one could reach you. For a long moment, Minho didn't move. Then he stepped back and sat down on the floor, his back against the wall. After a pause, Victoria sat beside him. I met Yuna when I was 26, he began quietly. She worked at a bookstore in Hongdae. I was there picking up something for your father, and she helped me find it. She had this smile that made you feel like the sun had come out just for you. We talked about books for an hour, and when I left, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Did you tell her what you did? Not at first. I told her I was in security consulting, which wasn't technically a lie. She never asked too many questions, and I never offered details. We were together for 2 years, and she never knew about the blood on my hands. She must have suspected something. Maybe, or maybe she just chose not to look too closely. People do that when they're in love, They see what they want to see. Minho's voice cracked slightly. The night she died, we'd had dinner. I dropped her off at her apartment and told her I'd see her the next day. Those were the last words I said to her. See you tomorrow. Victoria's hand found his in the darkness. It wasn't your fault. It was entirely my fault. I knew the risks. I knew what happened to people who got close to me. But I was selfish. I wanted something normal. Something that made me feel human. You are human. Am I? Because most of the time I don't feel like it. Most of the time I feel like I'm just going through the motions, doing what needs to be done. Feeling nothing. And now, Minho looked at her, and the rawness in his eyes took her breath away. Now, I feel too much. That's the problem. You make me feel too much. Victoria squeezed his hand. Is that why you tried to push me away? I'm still trying to push you away. You're just not listening. I'm Alessandro Marchetti's daughter. Not listening is kind of my specialty. That got a small smile out of him. You're also stubborn, reckless, and entirely too brave for your own good. Are those compliments or insults? Both. They sat in silence for a while, hands intertwined, listening to the city sounds filtering through the broken windows. Victoria knew she should tell him about her work with Interpol, about the case she was building, about the fact that she was gathering evidence that could send her own father to prison. But the words stuck in her throat. Can I ask you something? Victoria said finally. You're going to anyway. Why did you agree to work for my father? After Yuna died, you could have left, built your own empire somewhere else. Why stay? Minho was quiet for so long, Victoria thought he might not answer. Then, because your father gave me purpose when I had none. After Yuna died, I was drowning. I wanted to die. I took jobs that should have gotten me killed, walked into situations with no backup, no plan, hoping someone would put me out of my misery. But they didn't. No, I was too good at what I did. I kept surviving when I didn't want to. And then your father sat me down and told me that grief doesn't give me permission to waste the life Yuna died for. He said if I was going to throw my life away, I should at least do it protecting something worth protecting. So you protected him. I protected his dream of building something legitimate. Something clean. For you. Minho turned to look at her. Your father's not a good man, Victoria. He's done terrible things. But everything he's done has been to give you a life he never had. That has to count for something. Victoria's chest ached. What if I told you my father isn't who you think he is? What do you mean? This was it. The moment she could either trust him or lose him forever. I didn't come back to Seoul just to come home, Victoria said slowly. I came back because I've been building a case. Against the trafficking networks, against the money laundering operations, against everyone who's built empires on human suffering. Minho went very still. Victoria, I've been working with Interpol for 2 years, sending them information, building evidence. My father's name is in those files, Minho, so is yours. The silence that followed was deafening. Minho pulled his hand away from hers and stood up, putting distance between them. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. You're an informant. I'm trying to make things right. By sending your own father to prison? By stopping people from being bought and sold like merchandise? Victoria stood too, her voice rising. Do you have any idea what these organizations do? The Tanaka family that wants to marry me off? They traffic women and children. They move them across the borders like cargo. They destroy lives for profit. I know what they do, and you're okay with it? No, Minho's shout echoed through the warehouse. I'm not okay with it, but I also understand that the world isn't black and white, that sometimes you have to work with monsters to stop bigger monsters. That's a coward's justification, Minho's eyes flashed. You think you're brave? You think you're some kind of hero because you're gathering evidence and sending it to Interpol? You're a child playing spy games. You have no idea what you're risking. I know exactly what I'm risking. My father's empire, my safety, maybe my life. And mine? Did you think about that when you decided to play detective? Because if your case brings down your father, it brings down everyone connected to him, including me. Victoria hadn't thought about that. Not really. She'd been so focused on the larger goal that she hadn't considered the collateral damage. I have evidence that you were coerced, she said quickly, that you only participated in illegal activities to protect my father's legitimate businesses. I've been building your immunity case along with the prosecution files. Minho stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You've been building my immunity case. Yes, without telling me. I couldn't risk you interfering. Interfering? Victoria, you're talking about dismantling organizations that have existed for decades. Organizations that will kill you without hesitation if they find out what you're doing. And you didn't think I had a right to know? I was protecting you. I don't need your protection. Well, I need yours. The words burst out of Victoria before she could stop them. I need you to tell me this is worth it, that trying to fix this broken world is possible. Because right now I feel like I'm drowning, and you're the only person who sees me as something other than a pawn. Minho's anger crumbled. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You're not a pawn, he said roughly. You're the only person in this entire mess who's trying to do the right thing. Everyone else is just trying to survive. Victoria buried her face in his chest. I don't know if I can do this. My father hit me for the first time yesterday. Akira Tanaka looked at me like I was property he was planning to acquire. And now I find out that even trying to fix things might destroy the one person She stopped herself before she could finish the sentence. Minho pulled back to look at her. The one person you... What? Nothing. Victoria. It's too soon. We barely know each other. We've known each other for 6 years. We've just spent most of that time pretending we don't affect each other. Minho cupped her face in his hands. Say it. Minho, say it. Victoria's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. You're the one person I love, even though I shouldn't. Even though it's dangerous. Even though it's probably going to destroy us both. Minho kissed her, and it was different from the desperate kiss in the park. This one was slow, thorough, like he was memorizing the taste of her. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I loved Yuna, he said quietly. But what I feel for you is different. Bigger, more terrifying. With Yuna, I thought I could keep her separate from my world. But you're already part of this world. You understand it. You're trying to change it. And that makes you either the bravest person I've ever met or the most naive. Can I be both? You definitely are both. Minho's thumb traced her lower lip. If we're doing this, really doing this, I need you to promise me something. What? No more secrets. If you're working with Interpol, I need to know everything. Every contact, every piece of evidence, every risk you're taking. Why? Because I can't protect you if I don't know what I'm protecting you from. And because if this thing you're building is going to work, you need someone on the inside who knows how these organizations operate. Victoria's heart stopped. You want to help me? I want to make sure you don't get yourself killed. If that means helping you bring down the same people I've worked with for years, then that's what I'll do. You'd betray my father for me? Minho's expression was pained. I'd betray everyone for you. That's the problem. That's why this is so dangerous. Because the moment I chose you over everything else, I stopped being the person your father trusted. I became the biggest threat to everything he's built. Then we work together. We find a way to bring down the trafficking networks while keeping my father out of prison. We give Interpol what they need to prosecute the real monsters. And what about Akira Tanaka? What about the marriage arrangement? Victoria's jaw set. I'm going to destroy him. I'm going to find evidence of every crime he's committed, and I'm going to make sure he spends the rest of his life in prison. That's ambitious. I don't do anything small, Minho smiled. I've noticed. He glanced at his watch. You need to get home. Your father's security team is going to check your room in 2 hours. How do you know that? Because I designed their protocols. They check every 2 hours when there's been a security concern. Victoria groaned. I hate that you know everything. You'll learn to love it. They made their way out of the warehouse together, moving through the shadows like ghosts. Minho had parked his car 3 blocks away, and Victoria's rental was hidden in an alley near the building. Before they separated, Minho pulled her close one more time. Tomorrow, he said, we start planning. You show me everything you have on the Tanaka family. I'll show you the weaknesses in their organization. And we'll figure out how to burn their empire to the ground without taking your father down with it. And us? What about us? Do we keep meeting like this, sneaking around, lying to everyone? Minho's smile was sad. Until we figure out a way to exist in the open without getting killed, yes. We keep sneaking around. We keep lying. We keep pretending that what we have isn't the most dangerous thing either of us has ever done. I'm okay with that, as long as I have you. You have me, for better or worse. Victoria kissed him one more time, then forced herself to walk away. She made it to her car without looking back, which was possibly the hardest thing she'd ever done. The drive back to the penthouse took 20 minutes. She parked in the underground garage and took the service elevator up, praying she wouldn't run into anyone. Her father's security team was thorough, but they were also predictable. She'd timed this down to the minute. Victoria climbed back up the fire escape, slipped through her bedroom window, and was in bed with the lights off by the time she heard footsteps in the hallway. The door opened slightly, someone checking to make sure she was there, then closed again. She'd made it. Victoria pulled out her phone and sent an encrypted message to her Interpol contact. Need to meet. Have new information on Tanaka family. Also bringing in a consultant who can provide insider knowledge on organizational structure. The response came within minutes. Who's the consultant? Kang Minho. He's agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. The Kang Minho? Alessandro Marchetti's head of security? Yes. This is either the best or worst decision you've ever made. Probably both. Can you set up a meeting? Give me 48 hours? And Victoria, be careful. If Marchetti finds out you flipped his most trusted man, he'll kill you both. Victoria deleted the conversation and set her phone aside. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. She'd kissed the man she loved, learned he'd killed 12 people for revenge, told him she was an informant, and convinced him to betray the only person who'd ever given him purpose. Tomorrow, her father would probably announce some new security measure, or try to force her to have dinner with Akira Tanaka. Tomorrow, she'd have to pretend that her entire world wasn't shifting beneath her feet. But tonight, she'd let herself feel hopeful. Because for the first time since she'd returned to Seoul, she wasn't alone. She had Minho, and together, maybe they could actually change things. Or maybe they'd both burn trying. The next morning, Victoria woke up to find her father sitting in the chair beside her bed. She nearly screamed. Jesus, Papa, what are you doing? Alessandro looked like he hadn't slept. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loose, and there were dark circles under his eyes. We need to talk, he said. Victoria sat up, pulling the blanket around herself. About what? About the fact that my security team's cameras caught you climbing down the fire escape last night. About the fact that you disabled your tracking app. About the fact that you were gone for 3 hours and came back looking like you'd been kissed. Victoria's blood ran cold. I went for a drive. Don't lie to me. I needed space after what happened yesterday. After you hit me. Alessandro flinched. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. The apology was so unexpected that Victoria didn't know how to respond. But, her father continued, my apology doesn't change the fact that you're putting yourself in danger. Where were you, Victoria? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Why, so you can add more security? Put more restrictions on my life? Treat me like I'm property you need to guard? Alessandro's face hardened. You are not property. You're my daughter, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if you hate me for it. I don't hate you, I just don't trust you anymore. The words hit him like a physical blow. Alessandro stood up abruptly and walked to the window, his back to her. Your mother used to say that, he said quietly. Toward the end, when she was dying and realized I couldn't save her, she said she didn't trust me anymore. That all my money and power meant nothing if I couldn't protect the people I loved. Victoria's chest ached. Papa! I failed her. I won't fail you. You're not failing me. You're suffocating me. Alessandro turned around, and Victoria was shocked to see tears in his eyes. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to keep you safe without losing you. Let me make my own choices. Let me decide my own future. Even if your choices lead you to danger? Even then. Her father studied her for a long moment. Then he walked to her bedside and kissed her forehead, the way he used to when she was a child. I can't do that, he said softly. I'm sorry, but I can't watch you destroy yourself. He left before Victoria could respond. She sat in bed, her hands shaking, knowing that everything was about to get much worse. Because her father knew she was hiding something. And Alessandro Marchetti didn't let mysteries go unsolved. Victoria's phone buzzed. A message from Minho. Your father knows about last night. We need to be more careful. How do you know? He called me an hour ago. Asked if I'd seen you. Asked if I knew where you'd been. What did you tell him? That I hadn't seen you since the party. That as far as I knew, you were home all night. Did he believe you? A long pause. Then, no. Victoria closed her eyes. They'd been together for one night, and already the walls were closing in. What do we do? Minho's response was simple. We fight. Together.